Hello and welcome back to for the very first time to the channel. I am William Gwyn and today I'm going to be talking about my 20th favourite book ever all the way to my 11th favourite. This has been a series of videos where I started at my 80th favourite and each time I've combated 10 and now we're at the penultimate one. We're nearly there. Thank you to everyone who's watched all of them, and so now let's get straight into it. What is my 20th favourite read of all time? Well, the answer to that is The Lord of the Rings. So I know I've got The Hobbit in here, but I didn't want to take it out. It looks nasty with just 3 in there. So yeah, The Lord of the Rings is my 20th favourite read. I couldn't split it into each book. It was written as one book, okay? So yeah, there is my stalwart defence in my choice there. So yes, this is one that needs no introduction. What an impressive creation Lord of the Rings is. Tolkien created a language and then decided, I might write a book to that. And so yeah, he's pretty awesome. Also, I share 2 names with him. So his name was John Ronald Reuel Tolkien. My name is William John Ronald Gwyn. So yeah, feel connection there, obviously. But Lord of the Rings, this is a series with so much nostalgia. I believe when I was 3 days old, I was at the cinema watching The Two Towers. Obviously, I don't remember it, but it's been ingrained in me from then. And that was the first film I ever technically saw, because I did see the screen when I was a baby. But so yeah, as I said, it's been ingrained in me, this love for Tolkien. I'd also be kicked out of the Gwyn family if I didn't enjoy it. So it's very good that I have liked it. Yeah, I definitely do. I do love it. And so this is a series, as I said, needs no explanation, but it's about friendship, camaraderie. This is one where the action takes so much of the screen adaptation, and I love that. But in the books, the action is mostly stripped away. It's taken over, and it's only talked about in little segments. It's like he needs the big battle to facilitate the aftermath, and it's really focusing on those human interactions. I say human, but human, elf, dwarf, orc, all those different interactions, trees, but yeah, it's about those character interactions, and I love the sheer quality and quantity. No, I love the sheer quantity of the quality cast. And so yeah, that is pretty insane how many memorable characters there are here. And there's songs, there's a history to every single different faction. There's history to the characters, their ancestors and prophecies, and so much. Tolkien is often called the father of fantasy. He certainly did not write the first fantasy work, but his has become possibly the most iconic, the most well-known, and the most widely beloved. So yeah, of course, Tolkien has earned his reputation, and I talked about The Hobbit in a previous video, and today, Lord of the Rings. Absolutely love it. What a series. So many great characters. We all need Samwise Gamgee as a friend, don't we? Could not find a better friend out there. The way he sticks by Frodo, absolutely so brilliant. Peter Jackson, I think, did a brilliant job of adapting these. And yeah, this is a series that it captures my heart every single time I read it. I recently listened to them for the first time on Audible because Andy Serkis, Gollum, did a performance of it, so that was absolutely fantastic. He really understood the tone and atmosphere. I went in knowing he'd do a great job with the accents and the characters, of course, but it really did blow me away how his normal narration was absolutely fantastic as well. He really understood the tone and atmosphere and really had really great intricacies and bringing out other emotions and the words, the parts that are so important. He just shows that he understands it, and yeah, it was really enriching the experience as well, knowing that I can listen to it and read it, and they're great in different ways. So yeah, my 20th favorite book ever, Lord of the Rings. And now I can put down this tome. It is so heavy. Next up, I have possibly the finale to my favorite historical fiction series ever, and that is Excalibur, book 3 of the Warlord Chronicles by the Bernard Cornwell. So he is the author of Sharpe, which is an incredibly famous series, and of the Saxon Stories, which is otherwise known as The Last Kingdom, which has been adapted onto Netflix. And now the Warlord Chronicles is being adapted. Hopefully they do a great job, but the books, in my opinion, are certainly incredible. So I absolutely love the whole series. Excalibur, this is the finale, and of course it's taken Arthurian legends, so there's been so many adaptations that it would be easy to caught in the midst of those and be caught being a bit repetitive, but Bernard Cornwell just brings something fresh. He brings back characters who were abandoned from the myth many years ago, such as Dervahl. I was absolutely astonished when I was doing an extended project, an essay on the evolution of Arthurian legend. And I just thought, I'll email Bernard Cornwell, and he'll never answer me, but at least I tried asking some questions that I could use in there. And he answered how is that even possible? But yeah, he did, and he told me that he got Derval, the main character, from very early Arthurian legend, and he was mentioned in some of the Welsh monk monasteries in their writings. So yeah, he brought them back, a lot of the Welsh characters who have often been abandoned from the myth and have been for millennium. Brought them back, so it really kept at its core of the Arthurian legend, but it felt fresh at the same time. Derval is an amazing man, but I love how you see his flaws and his virtues. That's the thing that Bernard Cornwell does so well. He doesn't just show the good things about characters, try to make you like them. He shows their flaws as well, and the bad things they do, because it really makes them feel human. Arthur is... I would follow Arthur anywhere. Derval is, just as I said, an amazing man. Merlin is hilarious, and Lancelot is so hateable. The way that Lancelot, he hires people to sing songs about him so he seems like a hero, and he wins because people remember him as a hero. But it's done so well. How you take a character like Lancelot, keep true to the Arthurian legend, but he still manages to subvert your expectations and really just present this absolutely incredible finale to the Arthurian legend. It kept what we love about it, the contrast between the heroism and tragedy, which is at the core of Arthurian legend, of course. We know there is so much tragedy, but then he added his own little parts. He managed to include many of the more tangential stories about the Knights of the Round Table, and he managed to fit some of those in there in very clever ways. And Derval is a brilliant character who is at the core of the story. And at the front it says, before Alfred the Great, there was Arthur. There was. Don't try and convince me otherwise. Arthur was real, okay? And he was an amazing man. Cannot believe anything else. I've always loved Arthurian legend. Loved the Merlin program years ago. I absolutely adored it. Still is in one of my favourite series of all time. But yeah, that is Excalibur, the finale to one of my favourite series ever, and possibly my favourite historical fiction book ever. My 19th favourite book of all time. Next up in the number 18 spot, I have Gates for Athens by the renowned historical fiction author Con Iggulden. So this is about the Greco-Persian Wars. This takes on Marathon and Thermopylae, and I believe Salamis, the naval conflict, in the same book. Con Iggulden set himself a very hard task, but he more than delivered. He has exceptional characters. We really see an insight into how the state of Athens works, and we see this through the eyes of figures who are very influential. 3 to be precise: Aristides, Themistocles, and Xanthipes, I believe the third one is. I'm sorry if I just completely butchered those pronunciations, but I absolutely love how you see how their opinions differentiate. And Athens, it was called a democracy. It wasn't really. It was only democratic to the extent that some people were allowed to decide what happened if they owned property and were a man and had a position of influence. So it's not really democratic, but more so than was typical in the ancient world. And it's very intriguing to see how the different states view them, and Con Iggulden's opinion on how that would have looked and his own take on this history. Because I guess it is fun in historical fiction. It's really amazing to be able to see a glimpse into these ancient cultures and how they worked, and part of the joy of it is the ambiguity and how authors have their own creative freedom, but at the same time I wish we knew more, and it's kind of that double-edged sword, isn't it? But yeah, Gates of Athens, Con Iggulden is exceptional at writing action. It feels really tense. He makes you feel engaged with these characters, and that kind of stoicism that is really attached to the Greek states now is really present here, and it's really enjoyable to try and learn a bit more about that and see really the ancient Greek mindset. And we see how, instead of the typical vision of all of Greece fighting in the Greco-Persian Wars, you see how the states are really divided. Some secede to the Persian threat, some band together, but they do it out of need, not out of a desire to. They need each other to survive, and I thought Con Iggulden did an absolutely exceptional job. And I got to the very last chapter of here thinking, wow, I've got really emotional, but I've not cried yet. And on the very final page, Con Iggulden did something very crafty, and I was sobbing. I don't know if I can forgive him for that. If you've read this, you know what it is. But yeah, absolutely exceptional, and I loved it. Next up in the number 17 spot, I have Empire the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. This is a special edition which, wow, they have delivered. I mean, all the illustrations are in colour, and it's just exceptional how many there are. Empire the Vampire. This is probably the book with the most sheer quantity of iconic moments in a book. It's like, I think Papa Gwyn said that it feels like Jay Kristoff has read everything in the world, and he's found what is iconic and somehow fitted so many in here in a way that feels original, but also just really fresh at the same time. And wow, what a job Jay Kristoff did with Empire of the Vampire. So this is a chronicler's tale. We see Gabriel de Leon has been captured and he's being interviewed by a vampire, and he's telling the story of his past, and it often goes back to him in the present, and it's very intriguing seeing his life unfold before us. And yeah, I thought that this was a really fresh take on the school trope. So Gabriel de Leon is taken to a school and his training there is done very differently than usual, but I thought it was done brilliantly. A natural phenomenon has occurred called day's death, and so now the sun is partly obscured, so it doesn't shine so bright. So of course this causes environmental catastrophe, as many plants will not grow. They have to try and survive on what is left. And of course there's starvation and many more environmental impacts across the world. But it also means vampires do not have to hide away at night. They can come out during the day. They don't have to hide away during the day, I mean. They can now come out. And so yes, obviously many more dangers in that way. And I thought Empire of the Vampire was brilliant. It's a hefty book, but I thought it was done brilliantly. Gabriel de Leon, at times you really don't like him, at other times you really sympathise with him, and I thought it's brilliant how Jay Kristoff has created a character with so much depth and so many sides to them, and you see often his nasty little comments. Gabriel de Leon's are often a defense mechanism, and I thought that he just felt like such a real figure. And as I said, there's so many iconic moments where I was just like, wow, really blown away. I wrote down so many lines for this, and the line on the back of this is, "One day as a lion is worth 10,000 as a lamb." Pretty cool quote, and there are hundreds of them scattered throughout this book. And Jay Kristoff has finished the sequel and it's being edited, so that is exciting news. I cannot wait. I read Empire of the Vampire this year, absolutely adored it, and I highly recommend it. In the number 16 spot, I have To Kill a Mockingbird. Of course, I had to have To Kill a Mockingbird high up this list. So this is a classic that has resonated with millions over the years. It is about Father Atticus Finch trying to teach his children how to live their life. It is a Bildungsroman as Scout ages and is becoming disillusioned with what she saw as such a great world. So many aspects that she remains, because she sees the heroism of characters such as her father, but she sees the tragedy of the world as well. And it's about that disillusionment as you come to adulthood, and that's very poignant. I think something that resonates within us all. And this is a book about racial prejudice and the injustices of the world. And Atticus Finch, what a character. Incredible, where he is a hero but he feels real, and you see the struggle he is going through. And yeah, this is a book that needs no introduction, and I'm sure you all know what it's about, but I absolutely love it. This is a book that there was moments of joy, there are scenes that brought me to tears, and there are others that brought me crashing down to despair. But there's an element of hope throughout this, that times can change and we can have an influence on that. So that's kind of a message within it, but I thought it's done subtly. It's not forced down your throat. I really love books that do that they have elements of something which you can pick up on, but it doesn't become jarring with what the book is about, because it's not over sentimental. It's about someone living their life, and often with life we just get on day to day, don't we? We don't think about the meaning of life all the time. Sometimes we do, reflecting on that, but often it's just about combating what is thrown in front of us, and that's what To Kill a Mockingbird felt like. But Harper Lee managed to have that kind of subtext really play in so well. It showed that she's a brilliant writer, and To Kill a Mockingbird, what a book to have such a powerful didactic message, but also at the same time such an emotional experience. It's really fantastic, and it's such a memorable book with incredible characters and fantastic scenes. It is a classic for a reason, and that is why it's my 16th favourite book ever. And I think it would be far higher up this list if I read it more recently. It is a book that it just makes me feel such joy, and when I think of it, it just makes me feel complete, you know? It's one of those books that has so much nostalgia. In the number 15 spot, so again to the latter half of this video now, we have For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway. So this is a book, I believe it is the first major book written about something taking place during World War II. It was published in 1940, I believe, and this is about the Spanish Civil War. It is about a character called Robert Jordan, not the author of Wheel of Time. Robert Jordan is an American volunteer who is fighting in Spain, and he is I forgot what he's called, but he's set in charge to destroy a bridge. So he's demolitionist, that's it. And he's a volunteer. He believes in the ideals that he's fighting for, and it's very interesting how those hopes of his and those ideas and his purpose, some of them are dashed as he is brought face to face with reality, but others are enforced, and he really feels the purpose and what he's fighting for, and that it is greater than one life. And that is something that is very poignant. It's something like in Gates of Fire, you see many of the characters in that. A big section of the philosophy is fighting for something greater than yourself. Sacrifice, it is a thing that is so hard to imagine for those who have not been a part of a war. Like, it's just to put yourself in that mindset. It feels so alien to imagine war approaching and your life at such risk. It is something that I imagine I definitely can't, but I imagine everyone who hasn't been a part of war cannot even imagine. But we see a glimpse into it that Ernest Hemingway offers in such a brilliant way. He's a very accessible author with so much going on in the subtext and the underlying themes. I think he's a brilliant writer. And this is, whilst it's epic in one way, it is very intimate to the core of this story. There's a romance playing in this, but I think it's done very, very well, where romances can often feel forced. I thought it was done brilliantly. And yeah, as I said, it's an intimate story. It's about a group of people, as Robert Jordan has very few resources as he's put in charge of this job. So he's got a very small group to work with, and it's about him coming to know them, what their different motivations and desires, and what has pushed them into this war. And there's a lot of tragedy. There's heroism as well. I love that blend of heroism and tragedy, which shows the depravities of humanity, but also the virtues and what can make people great. So yeah, that is For Whom the Bell Tolls, and it is a book that has stuck with me. So in the number 14 spot, I just talked about a book that shows the heroism and the tragedy of life. Now I'm going to talk about a book that just shows the depravities and makes you feel kind of depressed, but you still love the reading experience. It sounds contradictory, but my number 14 favourite book is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. So this is a book, I believe it was written in the 1980s, and it's known widely as Cormac McCarthy's magnus opus, and it is about a group of scalp hunters in the 19th century in America. So it is about that racial prejudice, about the anarchical state of America when it's presenting this image of manifest destiny, and it's about dashing the falsities of what the West of America was portrayed as. It is shown as the land of the free, whereas this shows the reality, and it really isn't. And it's very tragic, especially when you know that this is based off the writings of Samuel Chamberlain, his autobiographical book, My Confession, I believe it's called. And yeah, it's horrifying. It's not gratuitous, but terrible things happen in this book, and it is harrowing. And there's a character called Judge Holden who is absolutely terrifying. Cormac McCarthy has a way of creating villains that feel real, but really just shock you to the core, and they feel so inhumane at the same time. And yeah, so Chigga in No Country for Old Men and Judge Holden in Blood Meridian are probably two of my top 3 antagonists of all time. But yeah, Blood Meridian is one that really stuck with me. I thought it's written fantastically. The way that Cormac McCarthy alters his writing style depending on the book he is engaging with, and the tone and atmosphere he's trying to deliver with the themes that he's engaging with. Absolutely incredible. He's many people say he's the greatest living author, and yeah, I would probably agree with that, with the sheer contrast to the works that he's made and the different aims he's had with them and the impacts they've had. Absolutely brilliant. Obviously the author of The Road, No Country for Old Men, the Border trilogy, and so much more. And yeah, he's just released The Passenger and Stella Maris. So yeah, as you do, don't write a book for 14 years, then release 2 in a month. As I said, as you do. So that is my number 14 favourite book of all time. In the number 13 spot, I have Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield. This is another ancient Greek book. I guess you can tell some of the books that I enjoy, and it's historical fiction, and it's another chronicler's tale. So Thermopylae has happened, and someone has been captured, and they are severely wounded, but they are forced to tell their story to Emperor Xerxes of the Persian army. So it's very interesting seeing how this person who's captured is not a Spartan, but he fights with the Spartans, and he is a slave to one of them. But you see how he's accepted as a part of society, and everyone understands their role. But before I get to that, this is a story about it shows a lens on the Greek states, and it shows how they're very brutal. Slavery plays such an avid role, and it's about trying to demolish those around you. But you also see, as I said earlier, I mentioned this when I was referring to the idea that sacrificing yourself for the greater good, and it's absolutely extraordinary story where many of these characters they feel like monsters when you first meet them, but then you really see them unfold and following this stoic philosophy, and then they're really explored as you go throughout the book, and you see the humanity behind them. And Stephen Pressfield does an absolutely brilliant job. It shows that I think a lot of books that look at Greek antiquity and the ancient empires can make the mistake of romanticizing a lot of what happened. Stephen Pressfield does not do that. He exposes many of the wrongs of the Greek states, but at the same time, he does show what is so intriguing about the ancient Greeks, and it's showing this idea of sacrificing yourself for the greater good, and as I said, the idea of the Spartan mindset as well. And I think what Gates of Fire does so well is showing that effect of camaraderie, the friendship, how it plays such an integral role. I love books that really focus on the impact of identity, belonging, friendship, camaraderie, all of those things. And I believe this was actually, I'm not sure if it still is, it was compulsory reading for the Navy SEALs in America. I may be wrong, maybe I've been a different group, but it definitely was for a major military group, because it's showing the idea of belonging and that idea of sacrificing yourself for something greater than one life. And I thought that was really powerful. Thermopylae, of course, is one of the most famous conflicts of all time, 300, and we know that, well, we predict that if the Spartans had not held Thermopylae and delayed the Persian army and installed such fear into them, that Persia may have gone on to, well, the Persian Empire would have gone on to demolish Greece and then go on, and there may have been no such concept as the West. And so, yeah, it really shows that it's such an important conflict in history, and it changed the world, literally, what could have happened. And yeah, Gates of Fire, so interesting on so many different layers, and there's exceptional characters thrown into the mix. So Gates of Athens showed how people sacrifice themselves for the greater good, and Joe Abercrombie's The Blade itself, my number 12 spot, showed how people only sacrifice themselves for their own sake, and it's all about self-preservation and trying to survive and not caring about anyone else. So yeah, a bit of a contradiction there. It shows that I like a wide variety of books. So this is an epic fantasy trilogy. It is called The First Law, and this is book 1, The Blade itself. I don't know how Joe Abercrombie managed to write such an exceptional debut. The characters here are absolutely brilliant, and you see that it's very cynical in some ways, but it's got cynical, dark humour, which really drives the story. You've got characters such as Logan Ninefingers, who is trying to redeem himself from a past. We're not entirely sure what has occurred, but we know he's not happy with it and that he hates himself. Then we've got characters like Glocta, who used to be an arrogant hero, but he was captured by the enemy and tortured, and he is now a cripple, and he is mocked by many, and he's very bitter, but you see how he is so intelligent, and he uses his mind to really win one over those around him, and he's got an element of good in him. Tiny little slither. All these characters have a little slither of good in them that you're hoping they'll act more on, but usually it's just that element of survival. And then you've got people like Jezal, who's a young, handsome soldier who's part of the aristocracy, basically, and he just feels like he's an absolute hero, idolizes himself. There's a scene where he's looking in the mirror and he's like, this is the jawline of heroes. You hate him, but you love to hate him. He's one of those characters. And I think this is absolutely brilliant. Takes fantasy in a brand new direction. Really one of the founding fathers of the grimdark genre, which has arisen in the last 10, 15 years. And Joe Abercrombie, in my opinion, does it better than anyone else. He's absolutely brilliant author. Blade itself, the whole First Law trilogy is exceptional. I've really enjoyed his standalones and his sequel trilogy as well. But I'd say his first trilogy is just next level, and I absolutely love it. And now for the last book I'm talking about today, my number 11th favourite book of all time is Fool's Quest, Book 2 of the Fitz and the Fool trilogy, Book 15 of the Realm of the Elderlings. This book just fills me with so much joy. I feel such an attachment to it. I've only read it once. I will be reading it again in 2023, but I just love it. I love it so, so much. There is a moment in here, which I can't say what it is because it would spoil the previous 14 books, but it is the biggest payoff of any scene just ever. I was sobbing. It's the only book that has made me cry in happiness. Cry with happiness. And it's just such a relief when this event occurs. And the character, he deserves it so, so, so much. Robin Hobb is a character-driven writer, and the characters are at the core. I'm a character-driven reader, so perfect there. And There's such a varied cast that you become so attached to. You, as I said earlier, it's books where you see the flaws as well as the virtues of characters, where I feel that extra level of attachment. I can go that step further, and Robin Hobb does it absolutely beautifully. Her prose is absolutely magnificent. I'd say that she is a master of craft, and yeah, just absolutely exceptional. This is a brilliant trilogy and a brilliant series. Robin Hobb is in my top 3 favourite authors of all time, and it's got a melancholic edge to the tone as well, which you just know things might not end happily. Robin Hobb loves to put her characters through tragedy, turmoil, tribulations, and so much more. There is heroism, but it's more of a intimate, subdued heroism where they're not heralded, they're not rewarded for it when they should be. No one gets what they deserve in these books, but you absolutely love the journey, and I love this series, and I absolutely adored Fool's Quest. It's such an amazing book, and it's got a special place in my heart, hence why it's so high up on this list. So that is my number 11th favourite book of all time. So there we go, they are my 20th to 11th favourite books of all time. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know if you've read any of these books. Let me know if you have any similar books that you've enjoyed and that you would recommend. And would you like to see a review for any of the books I talked about today? I could say so much about all of them, but I don't want to bore you. So let me know if there's any you'd want me to do a review of, and I certainly will. I'd be very happy to. But thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to doing the final video in this series of videos. Cannot wait. So yeah, it's been a while coming now, and thank you so much to those who have watched them all. And as always, thank you for watching this video. You've stuck to the end. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and stay safe.